We're going to talk about time series models and forecasting. As always, you can download this file from our website, and it consists of three tabs. Exercise, where we're going to do the calculation step by step. Then there's exercise solution, which has the solution already provided for you. And there is also a question tab where there's another slightly different data set where you're supposed to do the calculation by yourself. It's quite similar to the previous one. And after you finish the calculation, you upload it to our website and you receive the solution for this calculation as well. So let's get to it. Basically, this exercise is about using simple linear regression in forecasting, and we have a question. There's a company called Deliciousness Limited, which is a food catering company, and we have their sales recorded for last 20 quarters, and uh, the quarters are recorded over here. It's a food company, so people need to eat all the time, so their sales are actually not so seasonal. So that's important because simple linear regression will probably suffice. We'll see. We'll have to look at it, but there's a good chance there won't be any seasonal trend which we'll have to remove from the calculation, or at least we will have to calculate it. We have four questions. We have to calculate simple linear regression. We have to plot the data set and display the regression line. We have to calculate the MSEs, and we also have to calculate a forecast for the following 4 quarters. So, so first, the task number one, and it's again like quite easy way, quite easy task. We'll use the data analysis tool as always. It's when you go to data tab, you see the icon here for it. In a chance, like if by any chance if you don't have it already pre-installed, you go to File, Options, go to Add-ins, uh, choose Excel add-ins, press go and click it in. And after you click it in, press OK. So we'll choose the data analysis, choose regression, and what we want to do is choose the Y range and choose the X range. Well, we know the sales and we want to know how it depends on the timeline, how as it progresses throughout the time. So the quarter is actually the depending variable, so it's X, and sales are Y. So X, we always choose the whole data set, including the label, and we do the same thing for the X range. Now click into labels and output range. That's important. We want it over here, and we want to have residuals and residual plots. Press OK, and there's the regression. R square is quite high, so that's good. That's always good if it reaches such a high numbers, because it means there is a significant relationship. And we look at the residual plot over here, and we see like at the beginning there seems to be a little bit of a seasonal factor over here, but as we progress throughout time, it kind of disappears. So it probably is not there. So that's also good because it clusters above and below without much of a seasonal error. So our expectation is confirmed. So that's a task one. We can also the equation is apparent from these two in with these two from these two uh, like this is the slope and this is the intercept, so I can already write it y equals 64314 plus 729 t because, or quarter. We can also insert x in there because we have only one depending variable. Okay, so that's the question one. Question two, plot the data and regression line, including the regression equation and R2. Well, that's really easy, isn't it? We'll just highlight our little data set, press insert, press scatter box, and there it is. I'll put it in the empty space over here, make it a little bit bigger. Well, it's not really so nice so far. So again, as in one of the videos before, I'm going to change it to this nice scientifically looking chart. I don't really like so much that all of the data points are so much high up and there's so much of space in here. So I click on the axis, right click, and press Format Axis. And here I can choose the minimum because the first data point is already about $60,000. I probably choose the minimum somewhere around 55,000. And here we go. That kind of made everything look a little bit better. Now I also want to add the axis titles. So go to add, I'm still at the design tab, go to add chart element, axis title, primary horizontal, primary vertical, and this one is quarter, so I can just copy it in, sales, copy it in. I can see the relationship is somewhere up there, but I want to display it. So I click one click on the data points, all of them highlight, and go right click, format, add trend line. That's the option we want to choose, and choose display equation on chart and display R square on a chart. I can click, wait till the little cross appears, and then I can move it anywhere I want. And this calculation over here, or this equation over here, you can see that it copies what I previously wrote over here. So we just confirmed that our calculation from before is the same. Sometimes it can happen, of course, to you that, for example, you mix up x and y values and then the equation is reverse, which is not really a problem, but we want to calculate y from x, so we want this equation over here, so we just confirm that we calculated it correctly. So we can also while we editing the chart, we can probably also change uh, the size. We can just make it smaller so it looks a little bit better, so it's not like so dominant in there. Also, there's like no data over here, so it's not doesn't look so great. So again, click on axis, format axis, and you choose maximum, which we probably want somewhere around 22 because the biggest number is 20. So just you don't have to press OK, you just close the menu and automatically adjusts. So that's kind of a nice chart right now. You can also rename the chart. You can call it dependence of sales on the time. You could probably find a better way, but for now it's going to do. All right, so now we want to calculate the errors, MSEs, measurement standard errors. So I'm going to copy this data set somewhere over. Actually, I can copy it just over here because the table will just continue on it, and I'm just going to I actually don't need this one, so I'm just going to copy it over. Sorry, I have to be careful about where I'm inserting. It's always Control C, Control V, nothing more. These numbers, they are converted automatically, so it doesn't actually copy formulas, it copies the values, so I don't have to be careful about moving them. I just basically always, when I want to copy it anywhere, I just press Control C and Control V, it just copies. But to calculate the MSC, there will be two MSCs which we are going to calculate. There will be MSC for forecasting and MSC for regression. And I'm going to reformat it quickly so it looks a little bit better. These are the values. Basically, every time we want to change formatting, the easiest way is, if I just highlight uh, all these numbers will be in dollars, so I probably want to use this column to format, to use in copying formatting, and all you have to do is press Format Painter, then highlight the area where you want the formatting to be copied to, and here we go. Totally different thing, totally different appearance, and we probably also want to change the color of this area to signify that we calculated it, and this will be a residual squares squared, apologies, which will be just the residual from over here, uh, squared. So basically, you have the real observed sales over here corresponding with the quarter. Then, depending on the equation, which this is the predicted sales. So if I took this equation and used the number one quarter, which is the variable in this equation, the x is the quarter, I would receive this number. And you can of course see that the observed sales were a little bit different than the predicted sales. Basically, difference between this number, this data point, and the data point which would be on the line. So there's a difference, and there's a error between the two, or like it's called residual. So this number minus, or actually this number, the observed value minus the predicted value is the residual. So all I'm doing here is squaring it, so I can copy it down, Control C, Control V. And I want to sum it. I want to calculate the total for all of the squared residuals. If I do the same thing for unsquared one, well, because it's because the regression line is fitted in between, the sum of these residuals should be 0, and indeed it is. So to calculate the MSC for forecasting, all I have to do is to take the sum of squared residuals and divide it by degrees of freedom, which for forecasting will use the whole all of the, actually it's not by degrees of freedom, it's basically by the count, by n. So I'm going to just use the count function. Count, I know there's 20 because that's how many quarters there is, but I'm going to use the count and count the residuals, and that's already the MSC for forecasting. Or I can do calculate the MSC for regression, which is again the sum of squared residuals divided by degrees of freedom this time, which we have neatly prepared here in the ANOVA table. It's this one over here, and there it is. And I'm going to copy the formatting of the previous one to this one, so they are both in the same formatting. I can also uh, uh, I can also format it so it looks a little bit nicer just by using the format painter. So it's a very, very, very handy tool. And now, so we calculated the MSCs, and we have only one last task to do: calculate forecast for the following 4 quarters. So I'm just going to copy this first part of the table over here, delete the numbers. I don't need them right now. I just copy it basically for the formatting, for nothing else. And we're going to calculate the following four quarters. So it's the previous quarter plus 1, and I made a little error. So for 21 to 24, of course, I want to look. Of course, I want to change the formula, plus 1. And I like to use formulas even when you don't have to, because I found that it's more difficult to make a mistake in formula than if you just do like fill values manually. So it's kind of like a check. Also, if I change something in the table, it recalculates content automatically. So it's added value of using formulas more than sometimes it seems necessary. And now how will we create the prediction for the sales in these quarters? Well, we'll basically just use this formula, this equation, the regression equation, as we did, because it describes the relationship between sales and time. So what I want to do is to use, I have the coefficients over here. So intercept plus, again, plus quarter times the quarter over here. It's going to be for 21st quarter. And because I'm going to copy the formula down, I'm going to lock this part of the formula, because I want the coefficients to be used in all of the data points below. So F4, press down. And now if I copy it down, Control C, Control V, I always use the right quarter, and also use the intercept and quarter coefficients over here. So this is the prediction. This is the point 4 of our question. So we have completed the calculation. So uh, try to do the calculation for yourself, and after you complete it, go to the question tab, and there's another dataset waiting for you, which you should do for yourself. The questions are basically the same, so you just have to figure out how to do the calculation and replicate it for this new dataset. So thank you very much for your attention, and see you in the next video.